and it's that you're actually seeking an experience of newness, which to me feels like, it sounds like the pursuit of awakening. If we're a limited being that has all this karma and shaping of our personality and identities and safety strategies and personality patterns and trauma, and all of those are misperceptions, and the more that we can expose our judgments and charges and see past them, the more we can see the truth, the world through the lens of unconditional love and fullness. But instead of seeking it out in a way of just bathing in the purity of oneness with meditation, you're doing it in a really edgy, unique pursuit. And so what's your perspective on seekers who prioritize the spiritual journey of awakening with some form of spiritual practice and attending satsangs and praying to deities? I'm curious for a non-politically correct answer that speaks to your truthful opinion of what those souls may miss out on in terms of the pursuit.
Yeah,
do you think they miss out on anything?
I think it depends on what kind of time span we look at. I feel there's a season for everything, and there might be a season for just spend months or years in an ashram doing what you need to do, and that might be exactly what you need at a given time. But also, like, what my journey and experience has shown me, it's like I can't dogmatically commit myself to anything. And what's today's medicine? It's like tomorrow, with that internal compass, could turn it like 90 degrees to the thing that I was doing. And it might not make sense to me, and it sure hell doesn't make sense to anyone around me. Like, what comes up for them is probably judgment when, that internal pivot happens. And I mean, yeah, when I think about other people, it's like, I really don't know what journey they're on. And for some of them, it might be useful, like it's exactly where they need to be. And also sometimes I think it's bypassy. It's easier to sit in the meditation cushion than it is to take it into life. And there's people I've spoken to, they've done all the things. They've done the NLP, they've done the plant medicine, they've sat with masters, and they're still not at the place they want to be. And it's like we meet and I'm like, your next spiritual development is sales training. I'm like, you can keep running from life for as long as you want, but you're going to meet the parts you're running from yourself when you start looking at how do you start having sales conversations in an integral, authentic way, because it's going to force you to look at money and power, which sitting on a meditation mat may do and it may not do. But when you start facing it in life, it's like, all right, now I'm dealing with my shadow head on.
And has your experience been that in order to be able to find love, flirting with the danger of the ego, so to speak, is much more difficult?
You could say it's a risky business because you're playing with attachment and desire, and it's like on a meditation cushion, it's all very safe. Like, stuff can move, but it's still fairly safe. You're in a seated position, usually in a very safe place. Whereas taking this out into the world, there's a lot more variability that we can't control. Like how people are going to respond to our life, to our business, and it's interesting. You've been through this journey yourself, so it's like it encourages us to start seeing the life experience as a spiritual experience and nothing as wrong or bad. And for me, that journey, I was like, if this is true, and I'm gonna entertain this idea that it's one consciousness that's showing up in and through all of life, then I was like, I don't really get to choose the experience. Like, my role is kind of to open my heart to the experience as much as possible. And if that experience wants to take me to learning sales, even though like I was a spiritual boy that hated sales, it's like my identity, my sense of self is kind of bowing down to the path and being like, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do this. Is that kind of making sense?
Yeah, it is making sense. And I'm hearing that your relationship with following that inner nudge is that whatever direction it goes in the landscape of creation, which is every single thing, even the things that society labels bad, is correct and true and spiritual and perfect. It doesn't have to be in a spiritual setting to be spiritual. And that you trust that. And
I think there's still a value in the other, like having that meditation practice, a thing that's going to connect you to a space beyond your identity, is almost invaluable, because I think it's way too easy to get lost in the external pursuit of spirituality and to forget why we're really doing it. I feel for me, there was probably years where I told myself, I'm doing this and my path now just looks like this external thing. And I was also like, yes, and I can keep digesting my karma and the conditioning and unraveling it all through the external thing, which I think is a big part of this fear, courage, meta-fear conversation we're having. But I was like, I am not having more regular experiences of being connected to the oneness that I am, that we are, through this. Like, it happens in moments, but I'm like, my paradigm has ultimately not shifted in the last 10 years. It's created openings, and it's like lots of experiences, but it brought me back to this place of like, I need to come back to a practice with someone that's abiding in this state, so I can keep getting a reference point of what it means to be experiencing life from that place, as opposed to doing life from this place and seeking to be in that place.
I hear you. It makes complete sense to me. So I feel like that's the difficult. If we bathe in stillness and in oneness, and then we get clarity from source of what our next aligned move is, and then that stillness says, okay, cool, well, you've got service to be had in your coaching business. And then the journey then becomes, cool, I've got to grow my coaching business. I feel like for me, I'm going out of the place of stillness that gave me the clarity into the world, which triggers more of my ego, triggers more of my fears. And it's easy to then get stuck in that. But then if having that constant reference point back to spirit allows me to continue to flavor my real world experience with love and with oneness. But I feel like it's very rare that someone, I think it's really rare that someone is wanting to take their spiritual experience and thrust it into the world and actually follow the thread of fear as the compass. That is very unique and rare.